Let's bring in former Club for Growth president and Marco Rubio supporter Chris Chocola. Chris, good to see you. I hope I pronounced your name right. Chocola.
You got it close enough, Dagan.
I know.
Chocola. Yeah, perfect.
Chocola. Chris, you recently endorsed the senator's run for president and will be joining him at an economic forum later today. Please tell us why.
Well, I met Marco Rubio back in 2009 when he was starting his Senate bid in Florida. And, you know, my job used to be to interview candidates all day running for the House and the Senate and try to understand what they believed in economic policy and whether they understood what leads to economic growth. And you can imagine how exciting that is. But one of the most exciting days I had is when I met Marco Rubio, because he understands what he believes. He understands why he believes it. He can articulate those beliefs in a very clear, convincing, and persuasive way. And he also can talk about the fact that free market principles are so important to raising people out of poverty, increasing the standard of living, better than any other candidate. There's a hopefulness to his candidacy, much like Reagan's shining city on a hill, that I think sets him apart and will serve him well in this race.
Chris, but does he have to, because it seems like, based on the latest polling, that Iowa is a Trump versus Cruz competition at the moment. Does Rubio really need to come in a very strong second, at least in New Hampshire? You can take a look at the New Hampshire polls there. Or there's the Iowa poll, but if we can pull up the New Hampshire poll, does he really need to come in a very strong second in that state to have momentum going into the South?
Well, I don't know that he has to come in as a strong second. I think that he will gain momentum over time. When the Club for Growth first endorsed Marco Rubio in 2009, he was at 3% in the polls against Charlie Crist here in Florida. When people meet Marco Rubio, when they hear his message, when they see his optimism, they like Marco Rubio and they will support him. The people of Florida did that as they got to know him, and I'm convinced that the people of America will do that as they get to know him over the next couple of months.
Chris, how do you feel about 45% tariffs on China? What's your reaction to that?
It's awful. It's not pro-growth policy. It's one of the worst things we could do to our economy right now. And that's why Marco Rubio understands the principles that really lead to the creation of jobs, wealth, and economic growth. Donald Trump says he's the jobs president, but that would be about the worst thing you could do to jobs in America, is to put a tariff like that into imported goods. So I think that people can see the difference. I think these things come out. I think that when people go into the voting booth, they'll recognize that there are candidates who understand how to create jobs and those that talk about it.
Chris, this is Morgan, but how does Rubio really break out of the pack? I mean, right now we're seeing in New Hampshire, Donald Trump is leading by a huge margin, by 30%. And then we have about 45% of the Republican electorate that's tied between Rubio, Bush, Kasich, and Christie. How does he really break out of the pack, out of this establishment pack? Because I'm not seeing an early state that he's going to win yet.
Well, you know, I think that people have underestimated Marco Rubio as a candidate really throughout his career. And just talk to people that have actually spent some time with him and have been to one of his town halls or been to one of his events. They come away as supporters of Marco Rubio. So, you know, the Rubio campaign, I think, has been smart. They've approached this in a methodical way. They have confidence in the candidate's ability to connect with the voters, and I think that they're on track to do that. So, I think the media makes a big deal out of polls in the early states, but this is a long effort. And there are a lot of elections to be had, and I think he'll be just fine.
Chris, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. Chris Chocola. Be well.
Thank you.